Hello, my name is Count Lovenstein, and I'm going to have a look at some viruses and malware starting back in the old Amiga 500 days, which is where I saw the first virus that I can actually recall. I used to use a Commodore 64 before that, but I was loading software in from tapes, so I didn't really have to worry too much about viruses getting on them in those days. I don't even remember any viruses in the old Commodore computers. Anyway, let's take a look at our Amiga 500 emulator over here. So I'm going to put a disk in called AI Giga Utilities, and I am going to put in a blank that I prepared earlier, another drive, making sure that AI Giga Utilities is right protected, because we don't want anything nasty getting onto that. I actually used to call myself the Overlord back in the Amiga days, but when I was reading Frack magazine, I found that someone was already using that name, so I switched it to Count Lovenstein eventually. Now, this is what we're looking for here, B3 Boot Block Massacre. Now, with this small utility you can now easier torture local losers. It says you would need to actually be a real arsehole to use this, and someone local that you knew, or anyone for that matter, but this is just to illustrate how easy this is with no coding skills whatsoever, and no effort, minimal anything. I can put something nasty on a disk just like that. So this here is your normal Amiga boot block, which resides on track 0 of your floppy disks. And this Byte Bandit virus, that is the first kind of destructive virus I remember on the Amiga. There were other nasty things like the Lamer Exterminator and Saddam that came along later. Nowadays I don't think most virus scanners will even look for things like Byte Bandit, because it was specific to Amiga computers and is absolutely harmless to PCs. It can certainly spread itself within this emulator, but it can't spread to the wider Windows operating system. So I need to swap these disks over. So eject that, eject blank for virus, and blank for virus can now go in the main drive, and it is not right protected. So if I hit F4 here, Byte Bandit virus is installed. So let's go back to our disks, eject that, select image file and put it back in drive 1, and in here I should have Black Riot command disk. Do a reset. Black Riot was what my friend and I at the time, back at the end of the 80s, called our little disk spreading group. And there were a few other people involved with it. Myself and another guy who called himself the Batman were the two main ones. And I can talk openly about this now because we already got caught. So, if I go to Disk X here, Disk X is a disk sector editor. What it does is it let us get hex dump of what's on the disk, and now you can see that our boot block is looking quite different. The virus Byte Bandit 9.87 probably relates to the creation date, which was 1987. So this number of copies here, what the Byte Bandit did was it will count the number of copies it's made of itself, and when it reaches a certain number, I think it was 6 or 7, something like that, it will then basically freeze your keyboard, stop it from working, and every time it did this you had to do a hard reset. If you did a warm reset, it would stay in the memory and keep spreading. So I mean, it's not the most destructive of viruses. Don't remember it doing any damage to your data. It was just an absolute fucking nuisance. So this was basically the way. It was a quite innovative virus at the time. A lot of kind of spin-offs and imitations were spawned from it. Now, before we move off the Amiga, if I now take our utilities disk out and put the blank back into the main drive and restart or reset, it should almost certainly, as it was a blank disk, just fire up to a boot block as seen there. So as you can see, the Byte Bandit is now resident in memory and running, and at this moment in time you'd be completely unaware that it was even there. Now, moving on from the Amiga to DOSBox, found some fun things on the internet. These are actually old MS-DOS viruses, and the destructive element of them has been removed, but you can still see the messages. So quick launch. So this is coughshop.com. So it replace what you were doing with a message to legalize cannabis. I can't actually remember what the destructive element of that was. Maybe Google will know. Yeah, standard file infector that was considered an annoyance rather than destructive. It would infect executables, cause systems to slow down or malfunction due to resource drains. So it attached itself to exe files and spread through, like the Amiga one, through the sharing of infected floppies. And as it says here, like many early viruses, it was primarily an exercise by the programmer to test their coding skills and cause chaos, rather than for professional extortion, which is more the way it seems to go now. So now, moving on to the modern viruses, I'm going to switch to Linux because I really don't want my Windows PC getting infected. So now moving on to the modern malware, which I've found on this website, Malware Bazaar, where people can upload stuff, no doubt for analysis. So I've downloaded a few X's from here because I know they are not going to run on Linux, so this should be quite safe. And in this folder here, I'm going to use Ghidra to have a look at them. So this one I'm launching in here now is a Metasploit, which let's analyse it. This is a dump of the assembly. So if I search this for strings, this is quite different from the old viruses. Nowadays it is all about extorting money, ransomware, all kinds of scams, and there are no fun messages in here. Back in the old days, the guys were just doing it because they could. Nowadays it's much more professionalised and about parting vulnerable people from their cash. Personally I find that quite disgusting, but that is human nature. The way I run things here, ransomware scams never going to work anyway, because I have backups of all my data on air-gapped drives and computers, and there's simply no way, even if someone managed to crack the system here open, that they could in any way, shape or form endanger my data. It's just way too cautious for that. So yeah, there we go.